Welcome to a harsh reality broadcast on the 12th of January 2016. The title of this presentation is called Donald Trump Wakes Up the People. And boy, is he waking up the people. Now, whether you love him or you hate him, Donald Trump says it as it is. He's admitted he's been part of the establishment and he knows how the game is played. Now, what I like about Donald, he's refreshing. I like the way he's not politically correct. And I like the way he's exposing the corruption, the lobbyists, etc. However, I'm going to be honest, I don't think he's really presidential material. Because he has these good sound bites, but where is the substance? And what I would like to do is just play a few clips from Donald Trump. Here we go.
I will be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. Free trade can be wonderful if you have smart people. But we have people that are stupid. I don't need anybody's money. It's nice. I'm really rich. We're dying. We're dying. We need money. Thank you, darling. But Mr. Trump, you're not a nice person.
We don't need nice.
That's true. But actually, I am. I think I am a nice person. We have losers. We have losers. I would build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me. Nobody would be tougher on ISIS than Donald Trump. The American dream is dead. But if I get elected president, I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and we will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I really enjoy Donald Trump's rallies. He's entertaining, he's full of energy, and he strikes an accord with the people. However, I also understand that he does have psychopathic tendencies. Don't get me wrong, not all psychopaths are evil. He just has those tendencies, and I'll just give you a few examples. He tends to talk a lot, but he knows how to read people, and those are qualities of a psychopath. He's glib and he is superficial, but it's entertaining. And it's all about me. That's what psychopaths are. They've got enormous egos, and I think if you look at Donald Trump, he has those qualities. Absence of guilt and remorse. Well, I'll give you an example. When he built that golf course in Scotland, he just bulldozed over anybody that got in his way. He was focused and he got what he wanted. Therefore, another quality is a lack of empathy. They're manipulative and they tend to have shallow emotions. Now, don't get me wrong, we sometimes need people like that in business. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. Donald Trump understands that there's a massive debt problem in the US. And if you listen to his rallies, he often says that the national debt is $19 trillion. Well, he's right. And that excludes unfunded liabilities. And what Donald Trump wants to do is to reduce the national debt. Now, I'm not sure how he's going to do it, but at least he's bringing it to the attention of the people. In the UK, our Chancellor, George Osborne, has been trying to reduce the national debt. When he had the coalition government with the Liberals, he said at the beginning of that government that he would have the deficit down to zero. Well, that didn't happen. This time he's saying that in this government he's going to have the deficit down to zero by the end of its term. Again, I'm going to state it now, as I've stated before, that cannot happen. And it's due to what we call the paradox of thrift. And then the next slide, it'll explain what that is.
Number 2, the paradox of thrift. Much like a child getting his pocket money, one of the biggest economic questions is still whether it's better to save or spend. Free marketeers like Hayek and Milton Friedman say that even in difficult times, it's best to be thrifty and save. Banks then channel the savings into investment in new plants, skills and techniques that let us produce more. And even if this new technology destroys jobs, wages will drop and businesses hire more people. So unemployment falls again. Simple, at least in the long run. But then a live fast, die young kind of chap called John Maynard Keynes cheerfully pointed out that in the long run we're all dead. So to avoid the misery of unemployment, the government should instead spend money to create jobs. Whereas if the government tightens its belt when people and businesses are doing the same, less is spent, so unemployment gets even worse. That is the paradox of thrift. So instead they should spend now and tax later when everyone's happy to pay. Though making people happy to pay tax was something even Keynes didn't solve.
People that have followed my channel have heard me state before, we have passed a tipping point, and therefore there is nothing that can be done to prevent our standard of living from falling. And the reason for this is that we've over-leveraged. Now, prior to 1971, we had the gold standard that gave what we call a sensible fractional reserve ratio between what was in reserve and what was lent out. And in 1971, Richard Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. It was only supposed to be temporary, and it was to help to pay for the Vietnam War. And the dollar effectively became a fiat currency backed by nothing. And therefore, it was allowed to be over-leveraged. And it certainly has been accelerating over the last 10 or 15 years. And that's with the introduction of credit cards, running a deficit, ZERP and quantitative easing. And this has caused a major problem in our current financial climate. Today is the 12th of January 2016, and this chart shows that the FTSE 100 index is rising. Would you believe it? At this time it's risen already by 1.74%. Absolute madness. A major correction is on its way. This graph displays the Baltic Dry Index, and it's down to a record low of 415. Now, not many people understand what the index is about, and basically it reflects the cost of shipping raw materials, and the cost is reducing, which is reflecting a reducing demand globally. I've already mentioned that a tipping point has been passed to sort out the problem. Now, as far as I'm concerned, we are now for economic decline, and our standard of living is going to fall. Because if we try and stimulate the economy, we are creating more debt, which has to be paid for at a time in the future, but we're already saturated. And if we try the thrift, we get the paradox of thrift. Therefore, the demand for goods and services continue to fall. So what we should have done is many years ago face the problem, but we didn't, because politicians were pandering to a fickle public, and they promised the earth, but in the end cannot deliver. This article in the Mail Online really disturbs me. It says hundreds of far-right protesters rampage through Germantown, destroying ethnic restaurants and takeaways, hours after Merkel admits European migrant crisis is out of control. Well, to the average person, we knew that it would be out of control, and it makes you wonder why the government didn't. Now, I suspect governments are under pressure from multinational corporations to allow this mass immigration so that they can actually be cheap labour. Yes, I know it's a cynical outlook, but I really do believe that. Otherwise, where else does it make sense? Why does it appear that our leaders are so out of touch with their population? Because that's what it seems to be. Now, there is no excuse for all this rampage through Germantown. That is unacceptable. And what's happening in Germany now reminds me of what happened when Hitler was in power, and that was grotesque. Now I know Donald Trump is calling for a temporary ban on Muslims entering the country. Okay, it is an extreme measure, and to be honest with you, I don't think it's very wise, but I can understand where he's coming from, and I also can understand why he's got such a large following. What politicians need to do now is to listen to the people, because if they don't, there is going to be major problems and civil unrest. The population of Western countries have simply had enough, and they are rebelling against the establishment. And they see Donald Trump as their leader. Thank you for listening.